Hello and welcome to another episode of Fact Friday. Today we are going to focus on the dishonest ballots and the manipulated vote. This presentation clarifies how our current ballot has been manipulated and voting procedures have been hijacked. We will also review nonprofit definitions and expose misinformation about CBA POA's legal status, misinformation that was recently included in the May 2025 ballots. We'll also examine how accusations against two board members have been spread without verification, and how those two board members have not been given the chance to defend themselves. Specifically, this is Jerry Sullivan and Charlene O'Brien. Equal time was not given at the last board meeting. In fact, when Charlene tried to address some of the accusations, she was told to be respectful and she could resign and leave or be silent. This ballot disseminated accusations but did not give equal voice to Jerry or Charlene to defend themselves. These accusations were presented as fact when they are very much being disputed. And so we're going to start with a discussion of ballot 3 and the misinformation that was put out with the ballot to try to sway your vote to say yes. In order to really have a conversation about this, there are a couple key terms that need to be understood. The first one is the concept of nonprofit. That is defined as an organization formed for purposes other than profit making. This can be incorporated or unincorporated. That definition comes from the Texas Secretary of State. So the key thing here is for purposes other than profit making. Nobody in our association is going home with a profit check. We don't have shareholders that get profit dividends. There's nobody is making a living off of this POA. So we are an organization formed for purposes other than profit making. The second term is unincorporated nonprofit association. Now, this is the form that our association has been since the 60s. The legal entity falls under Chapter 252 of the Texas Business Organizations Code. It is important to understand that there is not a state or federal registration required to be an unincorporated nonprofit association. You form together as an association of, I think it's 3 or more people for a nonprofit purpose. And that certainly happened in the 60s here. There is no requirement for an unincorporated nonprofit association to seek tax exempt status or to seek charity status. That's just not part of the deal. The third term is tax exempt. This means that you don't have to pay a tax. And the type of exemption indicates which type of tax you don't pay. So Kelly and Kelly, with their privately formed unincorporated nonprofit that they are stating as us, that organization filed for Texas franchise tax exemption, which meant that they didn't have to pay Texas franchise tax, which is great, but the threshold for that is more than $1 million in income. So we weren't going to fall under that anyways. And they filed for state sales tax exemption. So it meant if we bought goods, we wouldn't have to pay the sales tax on those goods if we were going to turn around and sell them, which we don't do. We don't have a concession stand at our meetings or something along that line where we could say, exempt us from the sales tax of the purchase of these Jolly Ranchers because we're going to resell them, and the state can only have sales tax once, not twice. And the fourth one is, going back to tax exempt, it should be noted that the only tax exemptions that their unauthorized corporation sought was state franchise tax and state sales tax. They do not have a federal tax exemption. This is an interesting point because they're pointing out that our unincorporated nonprofit association never sought federal tax exemption. Therefore, we could not possibly be a nonprofit. And this just highlights the total misunderstanding of basic business concepts and how to run a nonprofit that have been highlighted by their actions of the last year. The fourth concept is charity. Now, a charity is a nonprofit that is tax exempt that then also files for a 501 status, whether it's 501c3 or the social welfare organization status that some POAs fall under. These are above and beyond. Um, the only reason why I even bring it up is because that nonprofit corporation advertised its fundraising events as a charity event and also stated that they had 501 status, which they did not. And so that violated many regulations and laws. And that's when they were first being asked, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? And it is always interesting when you ask questions and what you get back is attacks. So just to kind of recap this, Camp Branch Acres, its true status before May of 2024 was a unincorporated nonprofit association, and our contention is that our association remains so. In May 2024, the incorporation that was done by Kelly Harrell and Kelly Rom on their what they claim is their own authority was done in secret without proper authorization required by our bylaws and by Texas law. And our current situation is that we have a disputed legal status due to procedural violations of Kelly and Kelly during last May, and there are arguments that this corporation is not our association. It is a private corporation formed by Kelly and Kelly. As such, they can close their corporation that was never attached to our deeds, was never attached to our association. They can close that without negative implications for our unincorporated nonprofit association. Our unincorporated nonprofit association just needs to move forward. It can file for a new EIN as an unincorporated nonprofit association, get the banking relationship reestablished, and move forward. Our lawsuit is to give legal determination of our status and to take actions if that corporation was not authorized, asking the judge to order a dissolution of the unauthorized corporation, which will allow our unincorporated nonprofit association to remain and to keep operating without the interference of Kelly and Kelly. Now, this ballot is, it brings back memories here. We have been fighting the myths. I'll be nice, I'll call them myths instead of misrepresentations or outright lies. We've been debunking the myths for a while, including we've always been a corporation, which is false. Unincorporated means limited rights, which is false. Documents calling us a corporation made it so, which is false. And we didn't need a vote to incorporate, which is false. In a recent communication, Kelly Harrell stated that referring to CBA POA as a nonprofit is a crime. Now, there's some irony here because she's accusing CBA POA of breaking the law by referring themselves as a nonprofit, which we are legally a nonprofit under Texas law. She also claims that back in May and June, on the website that she paid for, that was the fundraising website, claimed that their corporation was a charity, although she didn't specify corporation. She just said, Camp Branch Acres is a charity, and we weren't a charity. Also claimed that we had IRS 501 status. Now, that's that tax exempt status, and there's no evidence that this was ever even filed for. And the database from the IRS website shows that that corporation is not and has never been federally tax exempt. So let's get back to the very problematic ballot procedures. People were not given an alternative way to vote. It's just, hey, it's going to be by mail. That's the only way we're going to do it. You're going to have to receive your ballot by mail and then return it by mail. So you're going to have to hope that the ballot actually comes to you, and that if you mail it, that the ballot actually arrives to the POA website mailbox, which is We all know how the mail system runs out here. Why did they choose the least reliable method to disseminate and receive ballots? Number two is people who have stated that they didn't receive a ballot have been told by the chairperson that a replacement ballot will not be issued and that it is only her responsibility to mail them. And that's incorrect. Texas Property Code states very clearly that property owners are entitled to a vote. It doesn't state that property owners are entitled to have a ballot mailed to them with no follow up. No, it says that they are entitled to vote. And so if the only method is US postal mail and a property owner says, hey, I didn't get a ballot, then it's the responsibility of the board to make sure that a ballot gets to that property owner so that they can return the ballot in sufficient time to have it received. They can issue a provisional ballot, they can issue a replacement ballot. I mean, this is not rocket science. I don't know what they're scared of here. It's going to be very obvious if somebody has voted twice whenever their name and signature is all over the ballot. Third is that the wording on the ballot is highly prejudicial, and the people who had accusations made against them are not being given a chance to respond. So these accusations are just being presented as fact, and they are not. There is definite defenses and there is explanations, and some of it is just wrong from the very start. So it's being put out there like it's truth, like it's been verified, like it's fact, and they didn't give the people being accused of misdeeds any chance to respond. They weren't given a chance to respond at the last meeting, and they weren't given a chance to respond in kind with the accusations that were disseminated in this ballot. Number four is the incorporation vote. So, inaccurate information has been given about our association structure, leading people to think they will be liable if they do not incorporate. They are confusing nonprofit with tax exempt and saying we can't be nonprofit if we are not tax exempt. We are an unincorporated nonprofit association but are not tax exempt. We just never filed. Our income and expenditures are too low to go through that rigmarole. We fall under Chapter 252 of the Business Organizations Code. This ballot is instead stating that we're an unincorporated association. That structure does not exist in Texas. Under nonprofit, you're either an incorporated nonprofit corporation or you're an unincorporated nonprofit association. Under for profit, there is not a structure called unincorporated association. Under for profit, there are things like LLCs and corporations and LLPs and partnerships and trusts and things and stuff. Well, not trusts, but these other things. There is not a structure called unincorporated association. However, the information sent out in the ballot states that we are right now an unincorporated association because they are making claims that somebody forged, I don't know, one of the Kelly's signature on a termination document. It just seems pretty convenient. By terminating the corporation, they have altered some of the election protections that we are seeing the results of right now. And by terminating the corporation, they can make the argument that our lawsuit is irrelevant. And there is only a claim that the signature on that is forged. We haven't been giving any evidence that that's the case. I guess one of the Kellys just said, hey, that's not my signature. And we're supposed to just accept that somebody in this community, in our community, would take it to the level of a felony. And this just doesn't even make sense because I was looking it up. If it was terminated, it can be reinstated within about 10 minutes by filing another online form and saying we're reinstating. So why would somebody go to the level of forgery, fraud, and a felony? So the three F's there. Why would somebody go to that level? And of course, they were like all looking at me. We know who did it. We just can't say. And so, does that make any sense whatsoever? So, they're saying that there's an FBI investigation, but they're spilling the details. And they're looking at me, telling me that I am the suspect. Yeah, if that's actually an FBI investigation, then I would think that the FBI would be pretty upset with the spilling of the beans at the meeting. I also noticed that this termination occurred at the end of March, and we know because they pulled a copy of it April 11th that they knew that this had been filed. Let's say that it was forged, then that means that they knew that it had been filed for weeks without telling anybody. And that just doesn't hit the uh, genuine feeling for me. If that was a forged signature, don't you think there would have been the outcry? They would have notified other board members. They wouldn't have had Charlene still trying to open bank accounts with a corporate identity that had been closed. I mean, this just makes no sense. You just look at it from multiple aspects, and it's not logical and it doesn't make sense. And you know what's been not logical and not making sense? Most of the misrepresentations and lies that have occurred over the last year. Number five, the only person who is being said to have access to the ballots prior to the counting is the person who lost ballots the last election and then mishandled the ballots and is a defendant in the civil lawsuit regarding the unauthorized corporate formation. So, since she's involved in a lawsuit regarding ballot number three, she should not be handling those ballots and definitely not the only person in charge of those ballots. Number six, the chairperson stated in an email that if anyone returns certified or registered mail, these ballots will not be picked up. However, ballot instructions just stated to send the ballot by U.S. Postal Service. It did not state which type of U.S. Postal Service delivery. Just in case they are unaware, certified and registered mail is through United States Postal Service. Therefore, those property owners that return it in that manner have followed the ballot instructions. It is not up to Kelly to decide which ballots will be accepted or not when they have been returned according to instructions. Number seven, when these board members were elected, it was through live, absentee, email, proxy votes. We feel consistent with the other chapters of the Business Organization Code because Texas Property Code and Chapter 252 is silent on this, but there are other forms of associations and other forms of business entities where the overall principle has been written out. And we feel that to be consistent with the other chapters of the Business Organizations Code, the board, when they remove a director, are supposed to recall the director in the same manner that they were elected. So if the election occurred with live and absentee and proxy votes, then the recall should have live and absentee and proxy votes. Number eight, the address that we were being asked to send ballots to is not actually legally recognized by U.S. Postal Service. 125 West Big Lake Road is not in U.S. Postal Service's address database. In fact, when you try to get things sent to it, it asks you to do 125 East Big Lake, which also doesn't exist. So imagine that we have a government website that lists inaccurate information. But 125 West Big Lake was never actually attached to a lot of land. It was a shed, and the shed is gone. It is not a valid physical address. And the Postal Service does not allow individuals or associations to create their own P.O. box. Those companies like Mailbox, etc., Postnet, things like that, they go through a very dedicated process in order to offer P.O. boxes. And we as individuals or as little associations, we don't have that right to just put up a mailbox and declare it as an address. So the very address that we're being asked to send ballots back to is invalid. The other thing, number 9, this is being termed a secret ballot. However, I don't know what's secret about it. The outside of the return envelope, which we are being instructed that you must return your ballot in this return envelope, the outside of the return envelope identifies who cast this ballot. Also, the ballot itself has the property owner's name, address, and signature. Therefore, this is not a secret ballot. And any wording that says that we have to do all of these restrictions because it's a secret ballot is invalid. And number 10, the chairperson has stated that there will be no observers from the association for the vote count. Now, isn't that just the sign of transparency and integrity? No observers. We're just stuck with another pattern of misinformation. We keep getting told information that is incorrect over and over and over again. The corporate status, the tax status, the legal rights, the documentation that has been. So let's look at this documentation. Incorrectly claimed calling themselves a corporation made it so. And we've debunked this in Fact Friday's episode 1. In fact, that episode was full of audio clips of Kelly and Kelly telling mistruths and then the actual truth from Texas law, regulations, or other verifiable sources with links. So if you haven't seen that episode 1, I recommend that you go. You don't have to really watch it, you can just listen to it, but it goes through about 12 concepts that they have consistently lied about. So this where they say that the documentation, if we call ourselves a corporation, it made it so. Well, there's only one way to become a corporation in Texas, and that did not happen for our association until the attempt by Kelly and Kelly to do that correctly in May. However, I say attempt because that whole certificate of formation, application for formation of corporation that they filed was filled with inaccuracies and lies. They listed people on the initial board of directors who did not know about the corporation being formed and had not consented. And there are just other issues with it. So to be a corporation, you have to legally file corporate formation documents, and that was never done until May of 2024. In the 50 to 60 years before that, they're showing examples of, I believe, 4 times that somebody, either in meeting minutes, in newsletters, there was a loan document that they used the word corporation, a management certificate, whatever. So out of 50 or 60 years, you're showing us about 4 times that that happened, that somebody incorrectly put the word corporation. Yeah, and the overall abundance of documents don't say the word corporation, and this uh, we we were listed as a nonprofit association in the hydropump lawsuit of the 80s, where Camp Branch Acres sued hydropump or put together a lawsuit for hydropump that was prepared by a licensed lawyer in the state of Texas, where we were called a nonprofit association, and there had been no legal formation of a corporation until the attempt in May of 2024. So let's just talk about the state of trust right now. This current leadership, the trio, because we're not going to count the 2 that are being attacked and are being falsely vilified. Our current leadership, the trio, the voting bloc that has hijacked this association. They have a history of deception. They implement questionable procedures, including this problematic ballot handling, violating property code requirements. And there are trust concerns here. Should these individuals manage your ballots, dues, and community's legal status? We have to think about all the different ways and all the different times that they have lied. I really thank you for listening. I can be reached at jenharristx@gmail.com. You can put comments here. on my YouTube videos. Those comments, you do need to follow terms of service and not just be rude, vulgar, etc. I also administer the cbapoa.org website, which has been revamped right now to include a lot of information for people who are trying to figure out what in the heck is going on here. And I am one of the administrators of the Camp Branch Acres Residents Facebook page. And I used to have where this Camp Branch Friends went to the Facebook group, and it looks like I need to fix that. But I'm going to have the link to all of these, including a link to Jerry Sullivan's response to the accusations against him and any other responses from accused. I'll have links to all the information that you need to look at, be aware of before you make a decision, unless you just know the character of Jerry and Charlene and you're ready to vote. But if you need some more information, there will be links in the description of this video here on YouTube. There'll be plenty of links, or you can go to cbapoa.org and there's all the links are there too. So if you have any questions, if you're having a hard time with the technology, just email me, jenharristx@gmail.com. Thank you and have a great day.